Oi, oi, lads.
It appears to be that time of the year, huh? It is time for set review. Let's see if we can find out what's good, what sucks. I don't know how long this is going to take. It depends how many cards are good. But actually, no. It depends how many cards are difficult to evaluate, I suppose, right? If something's easily good or easily bad, that's not going to take very long, but it depends how many weird ones there are. Alright, let's go one colour at a time, I suppose. Going to be as honest as I can. If I think a card is bad, I'm going to say it's bad. If I think a card's good, I'm going to say it's good. My ratings have absolutely are not influenced in any way by fun or not fun. If a card looks cool, but shit, I'm not even going to call it cool. I'm just going to call it bad. The fun is a subjective personal statement. It's up to you to decide if the card is fun or not. It's up to me to decide if the card is good or not. I do my job, you do yours. Let's do it. Elish Norn, Mother of Machines. If a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. Permanents entering the battlefield don't cause abilities of permanents your opponents control to trigger. So I'm going to be rating cards for standard, basically. And one more thing, just before we start. Once we get to like the uncommons, I'll take a bit of time on all the rares, or at least the ones that are worthwhile. Once we get to the uncommons and the commons, we're just going to skip a lot of them, but we'll look for the constructed playable ones at least. So, Elish Norn. For standard, she just seems pretty bad to me. There's not that many permanents that enter the battlefield with a triggered ability anyway. But even if there was, like, she's really weak to invoke, go for the throw, you know. Also, one final thing to clear up before we start. All opinions that I give, unless otherwise stated, are the default game mode is standard best of 3. If I want to give a best of 1 opinion, I will tell you that I'm giving a best of 1 opinion. Yeah, Elish Norn to me, I think she's a scam, man. Compare her to the other 5 mana cards that see play in standard just now and might see play in the future. I mean, Invoke, Gix's Command, these type of things. Not many decks even play 5 mana cards, but the ones that do are black mid-range decks, and all of the black mid-range payoff spells that cost that much get farmed. She's a 4/7, she can't attack into Shelly, she's, you know, the Vigilance at least helps against Wandering Emperor, but, you know, she's a card for random ETB kind of greed pile. I just don't see it, man. I don't see it. Mondrak, Glory Dominus. 4/4. If 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead. And then for 1, 2, or 3, you can sack 2 other artifacts and creatures, put an indestructible counter. Yeah. Tokens. Tokens. The problem with these 4 and 5 mana cards are that the 4 and 5 mana slot in standard is stacked, man. It is stacked. 3, 4, and 5 are all stacked. The thing that's holding back standard power level are the 1 and 2 mana cards. So like these 3, 4, and 5 mana cards have to be insanely good to see any play, because they're competing against just incredible cards, man. Fable, Wedding Announcement, Rafine, Lily, whatever else, Corpse Appraiser. For 4, you've got Wandering Emperor, Shelly. Airtie's pretty good. Ratadrabic, Adeline's a 3-drop as well. All the 3 mana soldiers cards, Brutal Cathar. For 5, you've got Invoke Despair, Gix's Command. Like, these cards are absolutely sick, man. Obviously, if you get to go off with a Mondrak, you're feeling pretty good. If you get to go off with an Elish Norn, you're feeling pretty good. But most of the 4 and 5 mana cards that see play in standard, you don't need to play them and then go off. You go off by just playing them. So that they're just a little weird, man. They're just a little bit weird. So I'm not a massive believer in either of these 2 cards for standard. Mondrak, I think, is a little bit more likely than Elish Norn, at least. Phyrexian Vindicator. 4 white. For a 5/5 flyer that if it would be dealt damage, prevent that damage and then deal it to something else. This is kind of just a random creature. Maybe good in the sideboard, like maybe a top end for just a mono white aggro deck, but even then, I don't think so. It's just a big clown, isn't it? This is the type of creature where the dies to removal meme actually applies. But just what do you play it in, man? It's 4 white, so you have to play it in either mono white. You need to play it in either mono white aggro and cut your Mishra's Foundries, or you have to play them in mono white mid range and cut your roadside reliquaries. Those 2 lands in both of those decks are way better than this creature is. This thing's unplayable. Kemba, Cat Enduring. Whenever Kemba Cat Enduring or another cat enters the battlefield, equipment. Okay, I see equipment, I skip to the next card. Might Overseer. 4 mana, 4/2 first strike. As long as it's your turn, tokens get +1/+0 and have first strike. 4 mana Lord seems pretty bad. And then for 3 or 4, make a token. Make a Might token. I mean, this thing is absolutely terrible too. So far, I think every white card sucks. I don't understand. I must be missing something with this card. This thing shouldn't even cost 4. This would be bad if it cost 3. 4/2 first strike. Tokens get +1/+0 first strike. What? Yeah, this wouldn't even see play in standard if it cost 3. It costs 4. Okay. Norn's Wellspring. Whenever a creature you control dies, scry 1, put an oil counter, and then for 1 in the tap, remove 2 oil counters, draw a card. I don't think there's a massive amount of sacrifice synergy in standard, and I'm not sure you can play this as like just a fair card and use opponents' removal spells as ways to get oil counters. So you need to be killing your own stuff at least sometimes. And the only one is Anvil, right? And there's no space in Anvil for a card like this. Anvil doesn't need this. It doesn't need this card, and it certainly doesn't need the 12 pain lands that it needs to use to play Mardu. Could be a sideboard card in just a normal white aggro deck. Just as a grind card against heavy removal decks. I mean, those type of cards are always in sideboards. Wouldn't be surprised if this is one of them, but I don't think you're going to see it in any main decks or any best of 1 decks. Skrelv, Defector Might. Now this one is a banger. 1 mana, 1/1 toxic, 1 can't block. And then for a 1 mana or 2 life, tap it, choose a colour, another creature gets toxic, 1 and hexproof until end of turn, can't be blocked by creatures of that colour this turn. It is a Selfless Saviour. It is a Dauntless Bodyguard that you can use more than once. Both of those cards are great. This card is now better than great. Fits in white aggro decks. It's a legendary. Fits in Esper Legends. It's just frickin' gas. I would imagine that most times that your opponent plays a white land, they'll have this in their deck. Skrelv is definitely the best card we've seen so far. In fact, kind of the only playable card we've seen so far. But more than playable, like, surely just comes straight in as one of the best cards in Standard. Skrelv's Hive. 2 mana. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life and create a pleb. I don't know, man. These cards are... They're never as good as you hope they are when you put them in your deck. It's different to Wedding Announcement because the Anthem effect on Wedding Announcement and the card draw are both incredibly important as to why Wedding Announcement is so good. You also, with Wedding Announcement, you get your first token at the same time as you do with this card. So there's no... You need to wait until the next turn to even get a token. It can't block. Like, the Wedding Announcement blockers are one of the main reasons why it's so good. This card is fine, and also much like the Wellspring, like maybe a sideboard card, probably main deck if you're playing some weirdo token deck, but even that's not going to be that won't be a real deck. There will be no tier 1 standard deck with this main. I wouldn't be surprised to see it in some sideboards though, because it can be annoying. But it'll probably be at its best out of the sideboard and mid-range matchups, where, well, you want to play this in the sideboard of a deck where your opponent is going to take out some of their removal against you, right? It is pretty good with Wedding Announcement because eventually your guys are 2/2s, right? But it's so slow, man. If you go this into Wedding Announcement, you've got a 1/1 token that can't block and a 1/1 token that can block, right? That's the start of your game. It is so incredibly slow. Eternal Wanderer. This thing sucks, I think. 6 mana, no more than 1 creature can attack it. +1, exile an artifact or creature, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of that player's next end step. 0, make a 2/2 double striker, -4. Choose a creature opponent controls. Each player sacks all creatures they control not chosen this way. It's too much mana. It costs the same amount of mana as Farewell and Sanctuary Warden. You just play Farewell and Sanctuary Warden. She is the third best white 6 mana card. There is no space in any deck for 3 6 mana white cards. There's barely space in any deck for 2 6 mana white cards. But there is one deck that plays 2 6 mana white cards, and that deck will continue to play the 2 it already plays. White Sun's Twilight. X double white. You gain X life. Create X 1/1 colorless Phyrexia and Might artifact creature tokens with toxic 1, and this creature can't block. If X is 5 or more, destroy all other creatures. It's sorcery speed and the tokens can't block. No, thank you. Against all odds, choose one or both. Exile target artifact or creature you control. 4 mana, choose one or both. Bounce a thing. Return a thing. I mean, this is a bomb in limited, but this is not the... In standard... Yeah, I mean, it's a 4 mana, 2 for 1. It's just so difficult to use, isn't it? You need something in play and something in your graveyard or the card sucks. Annex Sentry. When it enters 1/4 for 3, when it enters the battlefield, artifact or creature with mana value 3 or less, exile it. So it's like a more defensive Cathar. I mean, this thing's not bad. Not many creatures with 4 power going around, so if you're using the Annex Sentry, a lot of the time you're going to be able to remove one thing and then also block another with this too. And that is huge. Apostle of Invasion. As long as an opponent has 3 or more poison counters, I sleep. 2 mana 3/1, ETB with an oil counter, pay 1, remove an oil counter, indestructible, terrible. Hex Gold Hoverwings. 4 mana, 3/2 flyer. 4 mana. Oh no, all creatures get +1/+0. 4 mana, 2/2 flyer, buff your team. Honestly, man, that's not actually far off of being good enough, but it is off by a bit. Infested Flesh Cutter. 2 mana, equip creature gets +2/+0. Whenever it attacks, make one of those tokens, equip 3, trash. Double Strike, Toxic 1, trash. Ossification. Enchant basic land you control, and then exile target creature or planeswalker until it leaves the battlefield. Enchant basic land you control. Basic land. So 3 color decks have like no basics and it's impossible to actually play any. So you can play this in a 2 color white deck or mono white. Well, you're not going to play it in mono white aggro because you've got Lay Down Arms and Brutal Cathar. Your Thalia also taxes this. It's okay for Thalia to tax Lay Down Arms because it only costs 1. And then you've got mono white mid range. You've got like kind of blue white control. You've got like, you know, Orzhov piles that everyone seems to love. You've got Selesnya enchantments. Although I don't think Selesnya enchantments is going to have many basics in their deck though. I don't think Selesnya enchantments can play this. Because I think green-white is one of the colours that are getting a new land. So they're going to have 12 dual lands, 2 legendary lands. You're only going to have 10 basics in your entire deck. You can't play this with 10 basics. Feels like a card you would want in mono-white mid-range though. But also maybe not. I mean, the mid-range deck is so grindy that it doesn't really want to use enchantment removal. Maybe this card is a scam. This card is obviously a great card, but just the way the lands have worked out in standard right now, the way that because Thalia is available to the white aggro decks, so they want to run as little cards like this as possible. I'm gonna go out and say this is a blue-white card and nothing else. Even then, it's not. Is it even that good in blue-white, man? I mean, it is because blue-white removal is so terrible. It does mess with your farewells, man. And Farewell is an important card for a blue-white deck right now. Plated Onslaught. Affinity for artifacts. Creatures get +2/+1 until end of turn. We sleep. At the beginning of combat, creature gets +1/+1. No, +2/+2. Equipped creatures get indestructible. 1 mana 1/2 flying vigilance artifact creature. Damn, that's pretty good. Veil of Assimilation. 2 mana artifact. When this or another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, creature gets +1/+1 in vigilance until end of turn. +1/+1 and Vigilance. So this is a 2-mana Wormlet, but you don't get the Wormlet? Or the life. That seems pretty bad. Basilica Shepherd. 5-mana 3/3 flyer. And you don't even get to keep the counter, yeah, true. Deal damage equal to the number of creatures you control to target creature or planeswalker. Yeah, so these are the commons, so I don't want to spend hours, you know, like scrolling through hundreds of commons pretending that many of them are playable, so we'll do a quick scan. And if there are any standard playable commons, we'll discuss those, but we will skip most of them. You're gonna need to read fast here, because I am reading as fast as I can. There are not many standard playable commons, but there are some. Like I don't know about this set, but I mean in general. So we got to read them, but there will probably be 0 or 1 playable white commons. Let's see if we can find the one. This one maybe. 2/1 lifelinker when an artifact enters the battlefield. Oh, it's until account +1/+1 until end of turn. Boo! Boo! Vanish into eternity. 3 more to target a creature. Exile permanent instant. Pretty cringe. Right, so those commons all seem bad. Alright, quick review of the review for white. Elish Norn and Mondrak. I'll give them a maybe, but we'll put them to the more likely no than yes side of maybe. Vindicator seems bad to me. Wellspring seems like a reasonable sideboard card. Hive seems like a reasonable sideboard card. Skrelv seems insane. Wanderer, no shot. The Sentry seems great. Ossification, after thinking about it, it seems harder than you would think to actually get it into a deck. But it's obviously a good card if you can. So, to be honest, man, white seems pretty bad. Ecuador! Ecuador!